Okay, let's begin our council meeting on the Wednesday, the 11th of June. Again, God of our fathers, in whom we trust, and by whose guidance and grace this nation was born.
E tua atua kahu rarua, nā tua matua hono, nā tua aroha, e whānau mai, ia Aotearoa.
Bless these council of Upper and give all things needed for their faithful discharge of their responsibilities.
Mai ngā mai mātou, o ngā mai a whakatiki, o mai ki mātou, nā mā mere pai, kia arataki, aito mātou, nā mahi, kia hapari, ia tia hapari.
Give to each good health and good judgment for the decision to be made, wisdom beyond our own, and a clear understanding so that we may promote God's glory and the welfare of all in the city.
O mai te tēnei mātou, e rōtai, e wheta tōpoi, o pai hoki. Ia whakatau ai te ki rangi, nā matua tu aki e hoti. Me te tarora tanga, kia atu a korea tia aranga, o tia kora tu roto o whakatiki.
Through Jesus Christ our Lord, Amen.
Ko ahu kora tu matu riki, Amen.
Thank you. Welcome everybody. We do have no apologies, we're all here. Yep. And again, declarations of interest, if there's any changes, please let governance know. And Councillor Kerry has brought to our attention a long-standing local government mayor in Taranaki in Plymouth who recently passed away. Do you want to say a couple of words? Thanks.
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, only through personal connection with his daughters, but David Lean, or Daisy Lean, youngest mayor when he was elected in New Zealand in the 70s, in New Plymouth, long time on the regional council as well, but pretty influential. Two things he ran on was the actually building and establishing a wastewater treatment plant there, but also did a lot of the coastal walkway up there, and later on through that kept the TSB Bank and local ownership, which still gives grants and funding into the community. So pretty awesome guy. He died on the 9th. Sundays.
Thank you, Matt. So we acknowledge this contribution to the local government. Public forum, we have none. And we then move to item 4. Item 4, which is and put forward by Deputy Mayor and several councillors, where the revocation or alteration of the resolution of which was passed at our previous meeting on 14th of May. And the resolution is replace the recommendation that was passed that Upper Hutt City Council resigns its membership from LGNZ. Deputy Mayor Slide.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. The reason why I brought this was that I did feel that as elected members, we had all of the information on the table with the decision. I think that what my colleagues need to be aware of is that in the budget, we only have $15,000 that we have invested for the upskilling of us as elected members, and probably not aware that some of the cost of some of those committees that are run outside LGNZ and with regard to the Resource Management Act, whereas we as councillors need to have a number of registered RMAs. So the cost of that for a new person to go is almost $3,000. That's 2/8. For anyone to do a refresher, you're looking at $1,600. The other thing that I'd like to let people know is that the $60,000 that is in the paper that we refer to later today is that cost is around $60K to be a part of the local government act. What we probably forgot or sometimes don't think about is that we can attend the local LGN conference, and there are two prices, those that are registered members and those that are not registered members. And for this year's conference, it's a $495 difference if we choose to do that. When you look over history, how many people we have sent to that? We have not sent that many. The most that we've sent is down in 2022 when we sent 3 elected members to that conference. We had this conference that is going to be held this year is down in Christchurch. So not only do you have the registration to go down there, but you have the flights and you also have the accommodation that will be put on and come out of that 15. If you go to the LGNZ site, which is what Neil Holborn from New Plymouth put up, was that it provides a lot of training courses, which is what a lot of my councils and colleagues around the table said. But what they don't realise is that you can log in as a guest and still have access to those programs that are there. And you don't have to be a member to actually do that. You've got to log in as if you're a member, and you've got to log in as a guest that you can do that. The other thing that I think is when we consider all of the other things that have come to us previously or since or on the table, and if we think holistically in good governance rather than just in a silo thinking about whether we should pay this fee or not, we've got $251,000 to pay or find, which is to set up the 2 water entities. And we've only put $10,000 aside in our budget. So we've got to find that. We also had to find the $60,000 that is part of the LGNZ. And I'm sure there are other things that are coming down the track that we will have to look at that have not been budgeted for, that we will have to look at. So my rationale was that I didn't think that we had enough information on the table, that I wanted to be addressed in another way, that we think seriously, because we've already had a workshop or a training session for councillors to actually, from an external provider, not through LGNZ. It gave us the opportunity to actually have that training session with all councillors there, not 1 or 2 councillors at the table, which I found was more productive. If we continue to do that, knowing that in the new triennium, we will be looking at possibly new councillors and we'll be looking at doing the induction. The cost of that induction course that we did last year was $2,344. And that was using an external venue and external people to come and talk to us. So I think when you add all of those things up that we do, it is less than the $60,000 that we get. When in actual fact, I think all of you should question yourselves, what have you actually got from the fee that we have paid to local government when you make your decision? I ask you to support this revocation that I've put on the table and hope that we reverse the decision that we did in good governance. Thank you, Your Worship.
Any further comments? Question I'd ask is if we did, would we get a refund? Because we've paid it.
Sure enough.
Like it. No, yeah, if we don't know, we don't know, but yeah.
For Your Worship, we have on couple of LGNC recently, and it is with the membership starts in April. It runs from April to March, so 1 April to March. So you're already 3 months through it. So if you were to get a refund, it would be at best a partial refund for the check.
Councillor Newell?
Yeah, Your Worship, this for me is a matter of principle. We have always around this table made a decision and agreed that it would be a collective decision. So we've made this decision. We are partway through the financial year. And what we're doing here is thinking about future councillors, the people who have signed this particular revocation are well versed in issues. We know full well we're going to have at least 1 new councillor, if not several new councillors next year. And this really is about thinking the future for them. So I'm very uncomfortable with the idea that we would we made this decision early in May, that I'm very uncomfortable that we would try to revoke it at this point. Thank you.
Councillor Carson?
Must be election year. I'm very concerned about some long-standing understandings that have seemed to have been trampled on this year. One is, for example, we just witnessed last week, where normally a move from a standing committee is accepted by the full council. And we had that overturned last week. And that is breaking a long-standing tradition where a majority, even though it was whatever it was, 6-3. Excuse me, I'm speaking.
You carry on.
There's a long-standing tradition where a majority vote that has been accepted at a standing committee is usually accepted at a full council meeting. And now we have another one. A revocation that has been rarely used, and I don't think it's hardly been used since I've been a councillor since 2016.
But I will point out to you, councillor, our standing orders allow it.
I know, of course they allow it, but we don't normally use it at all. So in the almost 9 years that I've been a councillor, I don't think I can remember it being used. I may be wrong. But more importantly, I heard an if from the General Manager, Corporate Services. If we could get a refund. Now, we're going to make a decision today on the basis of an if. If we get a refund. We're not certain we can get a refund. So let's find out if we can get a refund and then come back to this next council meeting. Because I'm not voting on an if.
Councillor Kerry?
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship. I guess support the comments of the if, the fact that we're through the year, and the fact that the intent of this is to actually support the new councillors, should we have new councillors coming on board and understand the governance. And I think it's pretty important, given the context of the investigation that we have underway at the moment, given decisions that we've had changed and overturned, and some of the lack of process understanding, that we do have something there that is able to educate people, because clearly it's needed in this room for a number of us. And then the other piece for this is the dangerous precedent that I guess my councillor colleague Bentley and Councillor Bentley and I he had raised, was the precedent that this sets. There's no new information in this from 2 weeks ago, or sorry, nearly a month ago, that we voted on this. There's nothing new. We paid, we were decided to stay. The motion that's put forward simply asks that we change our decision with no other information supporting that. So I either think, again, if we're changing a vote, we didn't understand what we were voting on in the first place, or we didn't read it, or we've now gone back and reread it at this time and we're changing our vote based on that. But nothing new has come to the table to actually to say we should change this.
Okay, Councillor Hodges?
I remember we had conversations at the time about the fact that some things you might just pay more for. So we did know that information. The other thing is that the free access to training is only for pre-election. It's not the actual modules. Those modules are for paid members, and you need your member login for it. I personally have accessed them previously and found them quite helpful. But the free piece is the pre-election training package, not the whole thing.
Any comments? Councillor Older?
Yes, through Chair, I just wondered if I could have confirmation of where the current payment has been done and when that would expire if we were not to get any sort of refund and to let it run its course.
For clarity, the payment was made earlier this month, late last month, as instructed. And the payment is allocated over the year. The year runs from 1 April to 31 March. So 31 March 26 is when the current membership that's paid expires. Does that make sense? Yep.
Any further comments? Councillor Bentley?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, I agree. This is about the precedent. Obviously, you can have a revocation, it's in our standing orders, but if we are going to go back and relitigate every decision, as Councillor Kerry says, there's been no new information. And we actually have probably less information now about a refund, so we're not in any better place to make that decision. We could potentially be opening ourselves up to relitigate every single decision. And this wasn't made at a committee. This was made at full council by a clear majority. There was no one missing. We were all there. So I don't know why we're even relitigating it. So I think we should just continue with the decision in principle. Well, on the principle, not in principle, I should say, for clarity. Because otherwise it's a slippery slope. Otherwise people will start to politicise this process, and every few weeks a new decision will come back for revocation. And yeah, that is an election year, councillor. So
Yeah, Can you stop?
Can I have a reply?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. So I appreciate what my colleagues have said, and I'm not doing this as grandstanding or electioneering. But what I'm doing is probably I recall that we collectively gave enough instructions to the officers to bring this paper to the table. That information only happens if a majority of those around the table actually request that that information come. I believe that's why it landed on our agenda paper for the 4th. And that is why I'm saying what has changed when you give officers the direction to put a paper on and then all of a sudden decide that you don't want to support it. That is why I did this. It's not that I want to actually re-litigate, and it was in a workshop, and I don't want to re-litigate every decision that we've done. And to make a point to Councillor Carson, we have actually re-litigated other issues. Māori wards would be one that obviously Councillor Carson has forgotten that we re-litigated after we made a decision. But that is why I actually brought it up, was that we instructed officers to bring the paper to the council.
Councillor Kerr.
Sorry, if you wish,
Yeah.
point of clarification on that. We were required to vote on the Māori wards that second time. Not a case of us bringing that decision to the table.
Any further comments or questions? Okay, so we'll put that to the vote. And the vote that the recommendation is that council resigns its membership from LGNZ by giving notice. It's moved by Deputy Mayor Swale, seconded by Councillor Wheeler. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against?
No.
Division, please.
It's lost. All right.
I'm happy to go. So
Yeah, we'll go against. We'll get who's against, and then we've got them. Who's against?
The noes?
Yes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. 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 Thank you. Now we move on. We now move to item 5, which is the deliberations. The report on local water done well. Service the delivery model consultation. Now you have the reason we're going through it. It's obviously the policy of the present government and the framework that was set for us that we're following. Is there anything that you would like to raise? You think you want any comments?
Nothing to add to the consultation feedback from the report as per the paper on the agenda. Just to point out that this is focused on considering the consultation, some submissions, with further reports come back to council.
And you'll note that with our submission process, it was pretty clear that about 84% supported the option 1. And again, you've got the papers there from from the other existing councils that are involved in that, and you see much the same of the Deputy Mayor Swales.
Your worship, all through this conversation and consultation, where I want some point of clarity is around stormwater. I remember that when we talked about whether we should hand over stormwater or not hand over stormwater, there was a piece in there that said that any stormwater that was attached to a loading network or whatever, we retained that. I haven't quite got the exact words. So just a little bit more about clarity over the stormwater part. If it's all 3 that we hand over, it's a part of the conversation that I would like a little bit more information on. It's not that I'm going against the decision, it's really more.
Your worship, recognise that stormwater remains somewhat uncertain. If I can give to I guess quell some of that uncertainty, and as we can see through the development of the water service delivery plan after this decision is made. There is a proposal for a further section to brief elected members on the approach being taken to stormwater through that water service delivery planning group. It is recognised as well, even in conversations with the Department of Internal Affairs, that it remains a challenging matter, and that different councils, as they go through that planning process, are resolving it and working through what it looks like as they go. So there remains some uncertainty around that.
Thank you, Worship.
Any further comments or questions? Councillor Newell.
Yes, Your Worship, it's a comment on the fact that when you read these submissions, and put them up against what we have submitted out to the public for consultation, it is absolutely clear that people do not understand what the issues are. And I'm just hoping that we have sufficient energy and budget to actually keep up the communications with the public and attempt as best we can to clarify and get down to the nub of what some of the issues are, particularly the one that it is actually the government that is driving this and not us. Thank you.
Any further comments? No? Okay, so we have before us then the recommendations A through D that we received the report, received the submissions, agree that officers will report back on the 30th of June regarding the next steps and the preferred option. And note that doing water services delivery model will form part of the water services delivery plan that council's preparing and will submit to the Department of Internal Affairs by the 3rd of September. Councillor Griffiths. Happy to move it. Happy to move it. Seconded by Councillor Holden. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Contrary no. Been carried. Want to show our hands? Okay, let's move to the deliberation report for the annual plan 25-26. And we had revenue and financing policy, class 4 gambling venue policy, the alcohol fee bylaw and the scheduled fees. And we'll just do one at a time. And we'll begin with the alcohol fees bylaw. Any discussion on that? And that recommendation there discusses incremental implementation over 3 years. Yeah.
Just to your worship, if I may just
Absolutely.
just make a minor comment. We've just been made aware that there is just in terms of recommendation 3C related to confirming the changes to the fees and charges for 2025-26 as proposed in the consultation document. If you actually refer to page 14 of the schedule charges in the consultation document, it referred to children being the age of 5 to 14 years. Was that right, Mike? Actually, we as officers, we'd like to correct that. It should be 5 to 15 years. So
There can just be changed. We'll delegate the changing it to the director, to the manager.
That's for the charges.
Yeah.
It's a child is 5 to 15. We have it at 5 to 14. An adult is 16. So we've got a little bit of a gap there. So we're making that correction. In the fees and charges, it's 5 to 14. We would like it to be 5 to 15.
Makes sense. Yeah, we're just comfortable with that. Councillor.
Take recommendations B1 through to 5 separately, because on 5 I have a conflict of interest.
Yeah, we'll do each of them separately. We're just going to discuss the alcohol fees first. We'll do those and we'll just work through them. All right. Anyone have any comments to make on the alcohol? Councillor Ultra.
On one of the submissions, talked about the difference between winery cellar door and bottle store, the difference in that classification. Do we know if there are any major differences to the costs to different classifications in businesses? So in the submission, sorry, I have got it here. I'm losing my, it's not, so it was about being concerned that like a classification of a business, whether it's a winery cellar or if it's a bottle store, which is quite different, that how they're classified is creating an unfair cost. That was in one of the submissions from Karuru.
So you wish I might see what.
You want you guys want to come and sit here? You can move the chair. You can come sit there,
Thank you. Through the chair, the categorisation is actually in the Sale and Supply of Alcohol Act, so it's not something we have a lot of control over. There is a component of that categorisation that relates to the way that business operates, whether they have incidents on compliance, all them. But in that component, council has a level of control over. But the categorisation is generally done within the Act, so we don't have control over that. Thank you.
Any further comments on that?
Oh, just a clarification, actually, my conflict of interest is the very one I'm talking about, so it is withdrawn from the table. Got it around the wrong way, but I probably will have a conflict in 5 as well.
Further comments? So we'll come back to A and B, and what we'll do is we'll accept the option 1 on B1, alcohol free. We implement the bylaw with incremental implementation over 3 years. Happy to move as councillor. Yeah, Griffiths, second by councillor Carey. All those in favour say aye. Contrary no. It's been carried. We now go to B2, which is the class 4 gaming venues policy. And we had the report there with the breakdown of the submissions. We had a number of options that we looked at, either status quo with administrative charges, proposing to remove the word other community facility, sinking lid to allow new machines or venues, to reduce the cap from 174 to 156. Any comments to make? Councillor Newell.
Yes, I'm in favour of this recommendation, Your Worship. We haven't had more than 156 machines for quite some time, and I think this would be a way of, well, just to show that we're listening to the submissions. Thank you.
Councillor Wheeler.
Like councillor Newell, option 4, I agree with. I think it's a good compromise between the status quo and the sinking lid. Like, so where this moves. Thank you.
Councillor Carey.
Actually, we take it just by the number and submissions there. It's option 3 would be the preference in terms of the percentage, which is the sinking lid. In effect, if we go to a cap, then we've still got the option to reduce machines in the city with that cap number, which I think kind of, in my, I guess, values, that goes against what I think, these things do harm. Majority of the harm and the funding comes from low socioeconomic areas. Majority of the funding that comes out of them goes into the high socioeconomic demographics. So I would still be in favour of an amendment, if that would be supported, of looking for option 3 as the, we'll see, in line with the submission numbers. And
any further comments? Councillor Bentley.
Thank you, Your Worship. Initially, I was actually in favour of the changes that we proposed. I don't think we've done a great job of probably explaining it necessarily. If you just pick up the consultation document, there's a lot of nuance that gets missed in terms of why we propose to move the word in other community facility. Pokie machines are here, they do exist, and by having a cap on them, in my view, you actually just ingrain that those existing operators are the only ones who have the right to operate them. It allows for no competition in the marketplace. It allows no new venues to pop up with the opportunity of having their operations partially funded by pokies, which the existing ones are. So it actually gives those existing venues protection from any competition in that space. And the wording about the other community facilities specifically was to give, should we allow new entrants into the marketplace, give them actually feasible spots to set up, because our existing policy was unworkable for any new entrants into the market. And so I think, well, I actually believe that we should go with option 2. And that is, I know it's probably hearsay, it's probably blasphemy given the low turnout, but I think we actually did a good job in explaining it. However, I do believe it's the right move to go.
There's comments? Councillor Carson.
Okay, a comment about that, pokie machines do incredible harm and it's in the low socioeconomic. That applies to Sky City in Auckland. Now, if you look in Upper Hutt, that isn't the case actually. And over 20 years that I've been involved with the Upper Hutt Cosy Club and 17 years before that as their auditor, I'm quite familiar with the uses of gaming machines. Also, I know what the uses are in the, for example, the Aotea Gaming Trust, which actually uses the Queen's Post. They provide, if you look at their website, Aotea Gaming Trust, they provide numerous grants to all sorts of organisations, not profit, and sports clubs in Upper Hutt. Cosy Club traditionally has done the same thing, and will be back on stream, I believe, once in another couple of years. If you look at the Rimataka Licensing Trust, which is the Trust House Foundation, if you look at all their grants, they are not too high with socioeconomic groups whatsoever. They are in fact to the community groups that are the life and breath of the Upper Hutt community. There is no toleration between gaming machines and the harm that it does. Although some organisations will purport to say that, but there is no scientific evidence of that correlation. So I support the cap of 156, and I will vote accordingly.
Any further comments, Wales?
I'm standing in support of my colleague Councillor Bentley with regard to the protectionism of those that are out there that already have a licence with their gambling machine. We're a city of growth and we need to be actually open and give the ability for people who might come in there into the community that want to operate. If we change the wording in the document under option 2, then it still gives us some restriction of where they can open and operate. So I will be supporting option 2. So when we get to looking at the recommendations, I'm sure that I would like to put a recommendation as
amendment.
An amendment to it that we look at option 2, and I'd ask for a seconder.
Any further comments? So we've got a proposal here from Deputy Mayor Swales that proposing to remove the words of other community facilities, which was our option 2. Moved by Deputy Mayor Swales, seconded by Councillor Bentley. Is there any comments? Councillor.
Can I have an explanation what that actually means?
That's a good point, but it's maybe staff can.
Chair, I'll do my best. That would mean that our existing cap of 176 machines, 174, thank you, Councillor, is retained. The relocation clause is retained. The only change to our existing policy would be to remove the criteria of community facilities from the criteria for setting up new venues. So we're satisfied with that change. There's a couple of other minor administrative changes that we need to make to the policy anyway.
Yeah, so that was the issue that it was in there.
What are community facilities?
Well, that was it. We've been put there, and that was the question. People were saying, "What is it?"
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's removed.
Yeah.
That reference.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we do have an amendment, and we'll put that first to the vote. That the council look at is option 2. Council is proposing to remove the words "other community facilities." I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Hands up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Against? 1, 2, 3, 4. And so the amendment's passed. Okay? Right. So we don't really need to go back there, do we? No. You're passed. So it is option 4 is the recommendation. that we put forward to remove community facilities has passed, okay? 3, curbside recycling activity. Now, again, lots of people had number of submissions. And the, where are we? Oh, it's at the front, sorry. It's at the front. Again, the majority of submitters were, well, majority, so it was a lot of, when you look at what we received back, most people were comfortable with the existing service. With what we had here, as you could choose who you want to use, etc. Any comments? Councillor Wheeler.
Thank you, Worship. Yes, I'm for the status quo. We've had submitters 63% were in favour of it. We've got efficiencies over at the recycling centre. Probably the issue that we have over there will be capacity and frequency, which is not an inhibitor. I think we can actually fix that issue, especially on those busy times, Christmas, Easter time. But you would have seen in the paper in the last couple of weeks, you would have seen bigger issues in other centres that have curbside recycling, and where the efficiencies haven't been done and it's not cost effective. So I'll be voting for the status quo.
Further comments, Councillor Bentley?
I have a question, Your Worship. The money that's earmarked for the bid, is that the only purpose it can be used for? Could we use it for any other recycling needs?
You should have obviously marked for just about.
Any further comments? Councillor Carey.
Thank you, Worship. Just one question. I'd just like to clarify that with the status quo, we have got the funding in that plan to account for the capacity issues that we said were at risk at the start, and that we're planning for that.
My understanding is there is, but Tim?
So yes, we do have funding and so deal with the
Deputy Mayor Swales.
Thank you, Your Worship. So following on from Councillor Kerry with regards to funding, I understand that the extra funding to implement option 1 was coming from the waste levy, and I'm assuming that that can be transferred over because of the criteria that you need to use that funding for. My concern is going forward. So we talk about this year 25-26 and the funding and the costing of it. My concern is that the information that's given to us is quite limited in what happens in 26-27. And I don't know whether that's a discussion to have now. I do understand how much we get through the waste levy, but I'm also very cognizant of the money for the waste levy goes into our own regional commitment under the Waste Minimisation Act and agreement that we have with the other TAs in the region, that we have projects that we need to commit to. So we won't be taking any money from that to understand or appreciate the extra things that we're going to have to do around capacity for the environment.
Do you, Worship? So there's no impact on the project funding available to deliver the requirements Council has for the regional commitments.
Okay.
Any further comments? So we have for us here that we retain the option 2, which is retain the enhanced status quo and the curbside recycling. Happy to move. Sorry, we have a second, then you have a talk. Seconded by Councillor Newell. Yeah, Councillor Bentley.
Oh, sorry, I actually wish to move an amendment just to formalise those things under para 27 on page 160. 160. Specifically 27B and C. I think Park Street will actually eventually reach a limit in terms of capacity. And just for sheer kind of scaling up, well, you don't want to be putting all your eggs in one basket. You want to kind of spread it around the city. Are we going to continue that model? So having additional locations is something we've talked about for a while, and I'd like to formalise, say that we investigate that within the next year, because we will need to do that sooner rather than later, so we need to get moving. While the property market's low as well, in case we need to buy that.
There's certainly no funding for that though, is there?
To investigate it.
Well,
Well, sure, that's what.
yeah.
Within staff time.
Councillor Kerr.
We're saying there's no funding for that. We're still confident we have the capacity issue funded and sorted.
That is, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, that doesn't, sorry, Your Worship, that doesn't sound. Which I understood to be the capacity solution.
Councillor Newell?
Sorry to harp on about this, but at the end of the day, the criteria that we should be talking about is not encouraging more recycling. It is to reduce the amount of waste into the stream. So the stream of waste. So ultimately, we should be saying that we want the recycling station to reduce, because to reduce, because people are not having waste. They're making decisions to avoid putting waste in recyclables into the system.
Deputy Mayor Swales?
Your Worship, I support option 2, but with the caveat. So just for clarification, in option 1, we've said there's $525,000 that will come from the waste levy that will help support implementation for option 1 if we went there. The recommendation is that we don't go for option 1, we go for option 2. So the $525,000 that comes from the waste levy, if I remember correctly about previous conversations that we've had around the table, the cost of an extra container, the cost of more frequent emptying of them would be well within that amount of money that is obviously surplus, was earmarked for this, but now would become available if we go to option 2. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So, no other comments. So, Councillor Bentley, do you wish to put an amendment?
Yes, yes, please, Your Worship. I wish to move the amendment that reads, that we move option 2 and add in the wording after the full stop, and agrees to investigate additional recycling locations in areas of the district that Park Street may not effectively serve over the next year.
Happy to second.
So we get that clear. So the amendment is option 2, that we retain the enhanced status quo and agree to investigate additional recycling locations. Is that correct?
Yeah, over the next year. Yep.
Councillor, Councillor Whelan.
Just on that amendment, I thought option 2 was part of that investigation. Correct? Yeah,
True. Just formalising.
Sorry,
So we have a mover and Deputy Mayor, Councillor Bentley, seconded by Deputy Mayor Swales. We clear what the amendment is? Let's put that to the vote. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, no. No. Of course. Councillor Kew. Okay. It is now, it is passed. Right.
So it's moved by.
Moved by Councillor Bentley, seconded by Deputy Mayor Swales, and agreed to accept Councillor Carey as he is. Okay. We now move to B4, which is the revenue and financing policy, which includes the rating differentials. And that obviously was the forestry change. What we're suggesting here that we make the proposed changes to the policy. Is there any questions or any comments to make? Deputy Mayor Swales.
Your Worship, having read the submissions and the amount of submissions that came in, and then looking at the feedback that we're going to give as a response, I didn't think it articulated enough. Can we talk about the responses? Because if we agree to these recommendations, then I'm assuming we're also agreeing to the responses that are going to go out to the community. Just a point of clarification before I have a conversation.
Through your worship, there is a separate recommendation, number E, that talks about those responses.
Okay, so.
What page is
Yeah.
What page is that on?
So under recommendation, your worship, it talks about
Oh,
the.
okay.
So. Really, if you wanna.
Just through the chair to clarify, there is a recommendation E that talks about the responses made to submissions.
Page 147.
3.
Oh, yeah, sorry, yeah. Any other comments? Councillor Bentley?
Yeah, thank you, Worship. Just on the forestry differential, I think going back to 75 is probably good interim step, I would say, but I think it's probably a bit generous. I do think we need to find a middle ground somewhere, and I hope that next year's rating review will bring some sense back to our rating system because we're a bit out of whack and inconsistent with our reasoning. The initial reason to go to that because it's a commercial activity, but then we're going back now because we acknowledge that it's a relatively low impact commercial activity for most of the period. But I think 75 lands at a point where it's just not unfair to our residential ratepayers who are under a great deal of stress. But I also believe that we need to fix the rural rating bands to make it more workable, more understandable for people, because there's a great deal of uncertainty, especially around the bizarre 30 hectare rule, which has no kind of real basis anymore. And on one hand, we were saying that a commercial activity should be charged a higher rate, yet we subsidise farming, which is another commercial activity that's land intensive. So yeah, I think we just need to be a bit more consistent, but I have great hopes that our rating review next year will fix that.
Yeah, through you, worship. You mentioned the rating review. I think we were in hindsight trying to address an issue in isolation. And so taking it to 75 resets it to a status quo. And you raised the point consistency on the rural 30 hectares. This council has not done a full rating review for a long time. It is overdue, and I am working towards that piece of work, providing much more understanding into the community. Some of the conversations that have already started through this process have been very helpful and informing that.
Thanks. Councillor Carson?
Well, then just to lock that rating review in place, why can't we just tag on to the recommendation that to say that noting that council will be conducting a rating review during the coming financial year. So we actually got it locked in place for the next council coming in. Otherwise, it's just council officers doing it. The new council coming in, it's actually locked into a resolution that's been passed by this council.
Through you, worship. Just a point of procedure. I was discussing this yesterday, and the intention is to come to council in August. And then work through the timeline to meet the annual plan for next year. We'll need to start here.
Okay, so we don't need to do that.
Yes.
All right, thank you. So we have here before us that we do in option 1, make the proposed changes as suggested in the policy. Happy to move. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Griffiths. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, no, it's been carried. We now go to B5, schedule of fees and charges. Matter of amending the fees as proposed, plus altering the wording, our children adult. Any comments? Yes.
Could you just pause for a second to just
We pause now.
agree around this takes a little bit of time.
Oh, you never gave 1,000.
While we're waiting,
Sorry, carry on. Yeah.
thank you. I just have a quick question to the director. for our fees and charges, we've taken the step to line up our policy on child internments with our zero charge of child plots for stillborns. I just have a quick question, but the wording is still a bit different. For plots, it is stillborn only, but where child plot is requested, child's charge applied, whereas for internments, it's children under 1 year and stillborn. Is it possible for us to do under 1 year and stillborn for both categories at the $0 rate?
Yes, it is possible to have the same wording. That's something we can do.
Thank you. Do we need to amend that or?
We can record that today.
Thank you.
Further comments?
That's nice to that, your worship.
You want to speak?
Yeah, I think it's a good thing that we're doing. I think losing a child that young is probably one of the hardest things that anybody could go through, and it's a good step in the right direction for this council to be doing. And it's just something that we can say that in that time of great difficulty for those people, that is one less thing they have to worry about. And eventually, I think we should take the step to actually expand that to children 12 and under. But obviously, those things, there are financial implications, and it can't all be done at once. But I think it would be a great step to work towards.
Happy to move. We have a seconder. Councillor Carey. So we voting now option 1, amend the fees as proposed. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Contrary no. Then carried. We now go back to that we received the report, including the staff analysis on consultation document topics. Happy to move. Have a seconder. Councillor Holdness. All those in favour say aye. Contrary no. It's been carried. And we've done the confirming the following matters. We've done 1 through 5. We now see confirmed changes to the fees and charges for 2000 as proposed. Happy to move. Seconded by Councillor Brooks. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Contrary no. It's been carried. Note that the final annual plan 2025-26 will be adopted by Council on 30th of June. Moved by Councillor Griffith, seconded by Councillor Holdness. All those in favour say aye. Contrary no. It's been carried. We agree to propose responses, include as attachments to those that made submissions as part of the public consultation proposal on the annual plan.
Discuss that. Oh, I'm happy to move.
Move it. Moved by Deputy Mayor Swale, seconded by Councillor Bentley. Deputy Mayor Swale.
Your worship, with regard to attachment and some of the feedback that was put on the pages, I'd like to go to page 9. Which talks about cost rates and affordability. I think in some of the explanations that we've got there, that based on our planning and high level modelling to date, the preferred option would mean water change charges on an average about a third less than the modified status quo by 23-34. I don't think, I think a lot of my colleagues around the table have said that a lot of the information has not been clearly articulated or hasn't been a way received by those in our community about it. And I was just wondering if we could do a little bit more clarity when we go back to the community about some of the decisions that we're making under the cost, rates and affordability. I'm assuming that this is all part of E because we did know it isn't, so I can't talk to that.
Through you, Chair, that was in the previous report. Yeah, recommendations have been removed. Recommendation E does not relate to that ever. But I guess have to take the feedback in principle.
And that's why I was kind of asking a point of order as to when we could actually talk about comments, because it was all part of the annual plan. And whilst we separated the alcohol, the gambling and the local water, I didn't realise that we couldn't actually give feedback on the comments because it wasn't part of the resolution that was passed in that first item. So hence the reason why I thought it was appropriate now. If it's not, then that's fine. But I just think that just for our community, we should articulate.
Through your worship, officers would appreciate some guidance on what. The explanation.
So I think there were a lot of, sorry, your worship.
Yep.
Thank you for tolerance and allowing me to continue this conversation, but I know that a lot of questions when we went out for consultation about local water done well was when they looked at the draft that was paid. It goes with about page 32, where it talked about the financial modelling that was done for the community and going through. And when I look at the answer that you've got under financial modelling, cost rates and affordability, I just thought that based on planning, we could elaborate a little bit more to the community about the high level modelling of this, and that maybe some further modelling would come out later in the year once that last bill is placed, and that we'll be able to update them. But I just think that the way it is worded there, that it doesn't give them any clarity.
Through your worship, thank you. We'll take that away and we'll expand on that.
Thank you.
Thank
you, your worship.
So we're now on E. We have moved by Deputy Mayor Swales, seconded by Councillor Bentley. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
No, it's been carried. And then finally, F, delegates the authority of staff to make any consequential and editorial changes arising from the meeting. Have you heard that? Seconded by Deputy Mayor Swales. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
No, it's been carried. And it's now 9:55. Okay. Meeting closed.
It's not a thing.